Chapter 1646. While this side was preparing, far away in the Phoenix dynasty, old Master Feng was playing with his youngest son in the courtyard. "Little Yi, go and pick up that ball." After Feng Sanyuan threw the little ball in his hand out, he had his son pick it up. He looked like he was teasing a dog, causing the Phoenix guards who were hiding in the shadows to be unable to hold back their laughter. This was definitely his biological father. Only a biological father would play with his son like he was teasing a dog. Especially that little Yi. He didn't understand that his father was making fun of him. He even opened his mouth and drooled as he crawled over to pick up the ball. Then, he ran back to hand the ball over to his father. "Father, ball." The little guy smiled with his peach blossom eyes. His pure and innocent white face was delicate and cute. The 3-year-old child had a bit of baby fat. His chubby appearance was very comical, causing people to grin when they saw it. "Little Yi, is so obedient." Feng Sanyuan laughed and picked him up to sit on his lap. He pinched his chubby little face and at the same time, picked up a piece of pastry and brought it to his mouth. "Here, I'll give you a piece of osmanthus cake." However, the little guy didn't eat it. Instead, he took the osmanthus cake and slipped down from his father's lap. He ran over to a 7 or 8-year-old boy. "Little Yang, eat." The little guy stood on his tiptoes and brought the pastry to Zhao Yang's mouth. "Little Yang, osmanthus cake, eat." Seeing this scene, Feng Sanyuan nodded with gratification. It was rare for a little child to know how to share. This was a good thing. Zhao Yang stood there and looked at little Feng Yi, who didn't even reach his waist. His tender little face had a steadiness that was different from his peers. "This subordinate won't eat." "Master, eat." He, who was almost 8 years old, was a lot more sensible. Back then, he was brought back by Fengzhou and taught to read, practice, and cultivate. He had always been working hard to learn. The princess of the Phoenix dynasty, Fengzhou, was someone he had always respected. She was the one who saved him, had the monarch and the others nurture him, and had arranged for him to be by his master's side, allowing him to grow together with his master. Although he was Feng Ye's personal bodyguard, both the monarch and the emperor emeritus treated him like family. He had everything that the young master had. In order not to disappoint them and the princess, he had been working hard on his cultivation. He had promised the princess, the monarch, and the retired emperor that he would protect little Master Feng Yi at all times. Moreover, his father, mother, grandfather, and grandmother were all saved because of Princess Fengzhou. Because of her, they were able to cultivate as ghosts and become ghost cultivators who could walk around in the daytime. He would always remember this great kindness in his heart. "Little Yang, eat, eat." The little guy didn't give up. He stretched out his little hands and stood on tiptoe. His whole body hung on his body, just to let him eat a piece of osmanthus cake. Seeing this, Feng Sanyuan smiled. "Little Yang, just eat. It's not like you don't know how stubborn little Yi, is. Since he gave it to you, you must eat it." Hearing this, Zhao Yang thought for a moment, then took the piece of pastry and ate it. Seeing this, the little guy finally smiled. He ran back to his father and opened his little mouth. "Father, osmanthus cake." Chapter 1647. Although Yi, is still young, you can't spoil him like this. Unknowingly, Sushi walked over from not far away. Seeing Feng Sanyuan spoiling his son like this, only playing with him all day and giving him food to eat, she felt it wasn't good. "Mother." When little Feng Yi saw her, he slipped down from his father's thigh and flew towards his mother, directly throwing himself at her. Sushi bent down to catch him and calmly said, "Yi, did you forget what mother told you?" "I didn't forget," Yi, remembers. Mother told Yi, to memorize the cultivation method. Yi, memorized it. The little guy's voice was soft and his small appearance was lovable, causing Sushi's expression to soften. Such a small person and so lovable, she really couldn't harden her heart to punish him. Don't be too strict on the child, he is quite good like this. Feng Sanyuan said. After she came forward, he held her hand and had her sit at the side. The child is still so young, there is plenty of time to cultivate. What's more, Yi-er is so smart and learns things quickly, there is no need to rush. You can't spoil him like this. Sushi shook her head and said to the son in her arms, Go. Go and learn martial arts with Yang Yang. Mother, Yi-er doesn't want to go, Yi-er wants to play with mother and father. The little guy stayed in her arms and refused to leave. Be good, wait for mother to make your favorite dumplings tonight. She said softly and beckoned for Zhao Yang to come over. Yang Yang, take Yi-er to the martial arts field. You must make him practice a set of martial arts, don't let him be lazy. Yes. Zhao Yang responded and said to Feng Yi, Master, let's go. Then little Yang Yang has to carry me. He threw a tantrum and didn't want to go to the martial arts field. Okay. Zhao Yang squatted down and gestured for him to come up. Seeing this, little Feng Ye's face revealed a happy smile. He directly threw himself on his back and wrapped his arms around his neck. Ride a big horse, ride a big horse. Little Yang Yang, run. Seeing the two children walk away, Sushi looked at Feng Sanyuan. Although the children are young, they learn things the fastest and the best at this age. You can't let him do as he pleases just because you dote on him. That isn't loving him, but harming him. Tell me, if one day we are not by his side, and he is like an ordinary child, or even worse than an ordinary child, how can you be at ease? Even if he grew up in the royal family, by our side, we must teach him to be independent and learn to take care of himself. He's still so young. No matter what, he should have started learning at the age of 5. He's too young now. Feng Sanyuan said. He felt that it was not good to let the child learn this and that at such a young age. At such a young age, he should let him play and play happily. When it came to teaching children, the two of them had different ideas. They would quarrel from time to time because of this. Fortunately, they didn't quarrel too much. Occasionally, quarreling could add some fun to their lives. Sushi disagreed, he's not young anymore. It's best for him to learn things at the age of 3. He'll be able to remember the mantra even if I ask him to. Chapter 1648. No matter where they are, as long as they are safe. As Sushi spoke, she seemed to have thought of something. She smiled and said, on the other hand, we have to prepare for their wedding. Whether it's Xiao Zhou or Xiao Zhou's mother, Wanrong, I feel that this wedding must be held in a grand manner. That's for sure. Feng Sanyuan nodded and smiled. On the other side, little Feng Yi and Zhao Yang arrived at the martial arts field. They saw the Phoenix guards sparring inside. Little Feng Yi rolled his eyes. He held his stomach and shouted, Little Yang Yang, my stomach hurts. Xiao Yang was startled. He said, then I'll take you to see the imperial doctor. No need, no need. I'll be fine after you send me back to sleep. The little guy hurriedly said. Hearing this, Zhao Yang was speechless. He said to little Feng Yi who was lying on his back, Master, do you want to memorize the Heart Sutra or do you want to lift it? I want to sleep, I want to eat delicious food, I want to play, I want to. The little fellow lay on his back and said in a soft voice. His delicate little face scrunched up and his little mouth pouted. No, it's better. Memorizing the Heart Sutra or practicing boxing. You can only choose one. But I don't know what memorizing the Heart Sutra means. I memorized it, but I don't understand it. the little guy slid down from Zhao Yang's back. He pursed his little mouth and looked at him with tears in his eyes. Little Yang, that's not fun. Seeing this, Zhao Yang thought for a moment. He said, then I'll take you somewhere else. As he spoke, he took his hand and led him to another place. What are we going to do? Where are we going to play? Little Feng Yi followed beside him. He walked with his short legs and asked from time to time. You'll know when we get there. Zhao Yang said. He took him to a side hall where there were no people. After arriving at the side hall where there was no one, Zhao Yang stopped and looked around. He said to Feng Yi, Master, my parents and my grandparents are here. Have you seen them? Hearing this, little Feng Yi blinked his innocent eyes and looked around. No, there's no one here. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a figure gradually appeared. It was a woman in simple and elegant clothes, but her face was slightly pale. Yang, why did you bring little Feng Yi here today? Why did you suddenly appear? Little Feng Yi curiously looked at the approaching woman. Who are you? I've never seen you before. She is my mother. My mother works for the princess. They are here to see me. Zhao Yang said. He raised his head and looked at his mother. Mother, has your cultivation become more powerful? Since they started cultivating, in addition to being able to appear under the sun during the day, their strength had improved a lot. Moreover, they could control their own breath very well. They didn't have to worry about the yin qi leaking out and affecting their bodies. Princess. The little guy tilted his little head and asked curiously, is she the niece who is older than me but calls me uncle? Hearing this, another figure came out from the dark. It was Zhao Yang's father. He nodded with a smile and said, yes, it's her. Her name is Fengzhou. She is a very powerful person. Chapter 1649. You will see her in the future, and she should be back soon. Zhao Yang's father smiled and looked at his son. Shouldn't you be cultivating now? Why are you here? He didn't want to practice, so I brought him here. Zhao Yang said to his father, Father, let's practice in this yard. You can also give us pointers. All right. Zhao Yang's father nodded and stepped back a little to let them practice what they had learned during this period of time while he gave them pointers. Seeing the two children gesticulating there, the couple couldn't help but look at each other and smile. They never thought that they could still watch their son grow up like this. This kind of happiness didn't come easily, and they cherished it. They were even more grateful to the person who gave them this kind of happiness, their master. A few days later, when the entire imperial city was shrouded in the night and seemed quiet and peaceful, a huge black spaceship came to the sky above the imperial city of the Phoenix dynasty as if there was no one there. In the dark night, the atmosphere seemed so solemn. A strong and fierce murderous intent spread in the air. The pressure and murderous intent that came from the strong almost made the hearts of the ancestors of the various clans in the city tremble in an instant, and they felt an unprecedented sense of crisis. Almost in an instant, the ancestors of the various clans all rushed out of the courtyard at the same time. They raised their chi and wanted to jump into the sky to see what was going on. However, when they raised their chi, they felt a powerful aura spread over the entire imperial city. The pressure and aura pressed down on them, making it difficult for them to even breathe. Hiss! How could this be? They sucked in a breath of cold air, and they were shocked. Especially when they stood on the roof and saw the black warship that flew over the imperial city and stopped directly above the imperial palace, their hearts sank. What was that? Where did that huge black spaceship come from? What did they want to do? The ancestors were extremely uneasy, and they quickly gathered together to discuss. Could it be an enemy? The pressure that shrouded the imperial city is too strong. It's not something we can compare to. I'm afraid that if it's an enemy, it will only be a strong enemy, and it's coming for the Feng family. Could it be an enemy that Fengjiu made outside? Very likely. Look! An ancestor exclaimed and pointed to the top of the palace. The entire palace was enveloped by a powerful qi cover, as if everyone was trapped inside. The halo on the qi cover emitted a beautiful white light in the night, releasing a powerful qi, which isolated the palace from the outside world. Moreover, at this moment, cultivators jumped down from the huge black ship. Even though they were far away, they could feel the powerful pressure and fierce killing intent from those people. They couldn't help but tremble and suck in a breath of cold air. Hiss. Are they trying to exterminate the Feng family? Are they trying to destroy the entire Phoenix dynasty? Among the ancestors, the Geng family's ancestor took a deep breath and thought about Grandfather Feng's family in the palace. He couldn't help but rush forward. Chapter 1650. What is Old Man Geng trying to do? Does he not want to live? The others exclaimed, but they didn't dare to follow him to the palace. Although they had some friendship with the Feng family, the situation was not optimistic. If they suddenly helped, they feared that it would bring disaster to their family. It was not that they were cold-blooded and heartless, but their strength was limited. They clearly knew that they were no match for those people, so how could they casually attack? Are we just going to watch like this? An ancestor whispered with a complicated expression. What else can we do? Those people are clearly not people we can deal with. Another person helplessly said, if we could help, it would be one thing, but these people are too powerful, and the strength of those cultivators is not ordinary. I fear that even if we use all of our family's strength, we won't be able to defeat them. After all, our strength is limited. Look over there. That is the Feng Manor's Feng guards. One of them pointed in another direction. The Feng guards from the Feng Manor were quickly rushing toward the palace. It's useless. From the barrier, it can be seen that these people are not ordinary. The Feng guards can't go in. Even if they go in, they will only make useless sacrifices. An ancestor sighed and looked at the palace trapped by the barrier. He knew that the Feng family would not be able to escape this calamity. Another ancestor said, however, aside from Fengjiu, Feng Xiao seems to have left a while ago. Right now, there should only be Old Man Feng, his wife, and their youngest son, Feng Yi, in the palace. Hearing this, the others all became silent. Yes, although there were only the three of them, they might not be able to survive. In addition, the Feng guards in the palace and the Feng Manor outside the palace, they might. On the other side, Old Man Geng rushed to the palace gate. When he wanted to break the barrier and enter, he was bounced back. Just as he was burning with anxiety, he saw Feng Sanyuan being besieged by several cultivators in the air above the palace. Seeing that Feng Sanyuan was only wearing underclothes and his body was covered in blood, Old Man Geng gradually calmed down. Even if he went in, he might not be able to save Old Man Feng. Those people were looking at the Feng family. Old Man Feng and his wife might not be well, but their child, Feng Yi, had to be saved. But how was he going to get in? He didn't even know if there was a secret passage in the palace. How was he going to save Old Man Feng's youngest son? Screams and the clanging sounds of swords clashing rang in his ears. The palace was clearly right in front of him, but due to the isolation of the barrier, no one was able to enter. He could only hear the sounds of fighting coming from inside. Those mournful screams and the clanging sounds of swords clashing made his heart clench. Phoenix Guards. The Feng Manor's Feng Guards. They must know. At the same time, when the Phoenix Guards arrived at the entrance of the palace and found that the barrier could not be broken, they quickly turned back. The 8 people in the lead looked at the battle inside the barrier and heard the screams, and felt their hearts tremble. Those people's gazes were from the Feng family. Looking at the situation, they wanted to exterminate everyone in the Feng family. Who was it? Who was so bold? The forces of the surrounding countries? Impossible. Those people were on good terms with the Phoenix Majestic Empire. They definitely wouldn't take advantage of this opportunity to make a move. Could it be that they were from the 8 great empires? Could it be that Master had made enemies outside? Chapter 1651. Inside the palace, the thick stench of blood filled the entire palace. The palace maids screamed in panic, the clanging of swords and sabers, and the mournful cries of death. The palace that was usually filled with joy had turned into a living hell. Corpses were lying on the ground. Some of their limbs had been chopped off. Blood splattered on the ground, on the fence, on the flowers, and in the pavilion. What was visible was a heart-trembling bright red. Flames were burning, and thick smoke rose. It was a complete mess. Who are you people? What grudge do you have with my Feng family? In mid-air, Feng Sanyuan, who was only wearing a white inner robe, hurriedly got up. His body was covered in wounds, and blood had dyed his white inner robe red. Even though he was covered in wounds, he still held a long sword in his hand and confronted those people. He was surrounded by more than 10 immortal cultivators. Every one of them was at the peak of the nascent soul realm or the fairy realm. Putting aside the strength of the peak of the nascent soul realm, even a single fairy realm expert would have enough power to destroy the Phoenix dynasty, which was not very big. If a fairy realm powerhouse stomped his foot, the entire imperial city would be shaken. However, there was not just one person with such terrifying strength. There were nearly 10 of them. Nearly 10 fairy realm powerhouses, and 7 or 8 peak nascent soul realm powerhouses. They had actually come to deal with this small Phoenix dynasty. It was doubtful. Even Feng Zhou's enemy outside the tree probably didn't have such terrifying strength. Furthermore, based on his understanding of his granddaughter, she would definitely not allow any threatening forces to exist. She would definitely not give them the chance to seek revenge. Even if she spared some people's lives, it would definitely not be people like these people, who possessed such terrifying strength. Dead people don't need to know too much. A gloomy voice came from the flying ship. The pressure contained in that voice was so strong that it made people's hearts tremble. Feng Sanyuan only felt that the voice was like a hammer that smashed into his heart. It shook his mind, and his qi and blood went against the flow. He felt a salty taste in his throat, and a mouthful of blood flowed out. So strong. He widened his eyes in shock. At the same time, he was also worried. These people clearly wanted to destroy his Feng family and his Phoenix dynasty. Under the pursuit of so many powerhouses, could his wife and children escape alive? Could they survive? There was also his eldest son and granddaughter, who were far away in the 8 great empires. If they returned, would they be ambushed by these people? If they returned and saw that they had all been killed, would they fall into endless madness? Thoughts flashed through his mind one after another, causing his determination to fight to the death to waver a little. He had to escape. Even if he could not escape, he must protect his wife and children. He had to let them live. Even if the chances were so slim, he had to do his best to protect his wife and child. On the other side, Sushi took little Feng Yi and Zhao Yang to escape to the secret passage under the escort of the shadow guards. In order to avoid the pursuit, the shadow guards and phoenix guards protecting them died one by one. Even Sushi's arm was cut by a sword in order to protect the child. The wound was so deep that the bone was visible. Chapter 1652. He kept staring at the wound that his mother had used a piece of cloth torn from her dress to bandage it. The fresh blood had seeped out again and dyed the bandage red. As he watched, his eyes turned red and he bit his lips tightly. His delicate little face had turned pale because of tonight's sudden change. His pure and clear eyes were filled with worry and fear. Sushi's face was pale. Her heart was trembling. She was afraid. She was afraid that her husband would die. She was afraid that her child would die. No one would be able to save them. They were in a hopeless situation with nowhere to run. Those people wanted to kill them. They couldn't escape. When they arrived at the secret passage in the palace, Sushi brought the two inside. It was an underground secret room in the pond. There was a formation and barrier here. No matter how strong someone was, they wouldn't be able to find them with their divine sense. This was originally a safe place in case something happened. She didn't expect. Sushi looked at Xiao Yang and asked, Yang Yang, I'll leave Yi, to you. Can you promise me to protect him? I will use my life to protect Master. Xiao Yang firmly said. He knew that the Feng family had encountered such a great calamity. He was afraid that the odds were against them. It was because of this that his father knew about him. They were going to save the retired emperor. Even if it was very likely that their souls would scatter and disappear from the world, they still had to help. They had reminded him to protect the little master well, and he remembered that. He definitely remembered that he had been cultivating. He would definitely protect little master. Yang Yang is so obedient. Sushi's eyes turned red. Tears couldn't help but fall. Those people came suddenly and covered the entire palace, making it impossible for the people inside to escape. The palace guards, secret guards, and even the Phoenix guards went all out. However, those people were too strong. The people in the palace couldn't match them at all. Seeing the people she was familiar with being killed one by one, her heart ached unbearably. However, there was nothing she could do. She knew that even if they had to pay with their lives, even if they knew they couldn't save them, they would still block in front of them. They would block the danger for them and block the sharp blades for them. Mother, where are you going? Aren't you going to stay with Yi? Mother, Yi is scared. Yi is so scared. The little fellow finally couldn't help but cry out. His little hands tightly clutched his mother's clothes, and he buried his whole body in his mother's embrace as he cried. Yi be good. Yi must be obedient. Mother is not by your side, so you must listen to Yang Yang and not throw a tantrum. She wept and comforted the little girl in her arms. Remember, you must find Fingzhou and your big brother. Even if your parents are gone, they will take good care of you for them. No, Yi only wants mother and father, only mother and father. Wowo. The little fellow cried in panic. He was afraid that his mother would be like his father, saying that she would go out and not come back. He was afraid that his father and mother would bleed. He was afraid that they would fall to the ground and die like the others. He didn't want to be alone. He didn't want to be left alone. Chapter 1653. She was worried that in the face of death, some people would betray them in order to save their lives. She was worried that if they went to find people they were familiar with in the city, those people would take advantage of the situation and hand them over when they saw that the Feng family was in trouble. Therefore, she told him to find Fingzhou and Feng Xiao. She could only trust the two of them. She couldn't be on guard against others because this was her child, her and Sun Yuan's child. She didn't dare to take the risk. You're not coming with us. Xiao Yang looked at her and asked. His little face was puzzled. Why didn't she leave with them? Wouldn't it be better if she was there? Sushi shook her head. I can't go. There are only Sanyuan, me, and Yi in the palace. Those people are coming for us. They will definitely find us and kill us. If I leave with you, even if I kill Sanyuan, they won't let it go. They will definitely turn the palace upside down. At that time, it will be difficult for ye, to survive. She lovingly caressed her son's pale little face. The little boy had gone through such a big change tonight. Those corpses and blood must have frightened him, but he had been suppressing it, which made her heart ache. Those people are too strong. Only if I go out can I divert their attention. Only then can you have a better chance of survival. She suppressed the reluctance in her heart and handed the child to Zhao Yang. Yang, although you are only 7 or 8 years old, you are older than Yi. You two grew up together and are like brothers. Now, I have no other choice. I have no one else to entrust. I can only entrust Yi, to you. Please protect him well. As long as he survives this period, those people will leave. When Fingzhou and the others return, everything will be fine. Hearing those words, Zhao Yang nodded as if he understood, and, I will take master and leave. We will definitely find Princess and the king. He bent down and carried the unconscious little Feng Yi on his back. He looked at her and wanted to say something. In the end, he didn't say anything. He carried little Feng Yi and walked down the secret passage. Seeing them leave, Sushi retracted her gaze and bandaged the wound on her arm again. Then, she walked out and destroyed the mechanism to enter the tunnel so that no one could enter. Taking advantage of the darkness of the night, she stealthily moved from one side of the tunnel to the other. She tried her best to stay as far away from the tunnel as possible until she arrived at a fake mountain. When she saw Feng Sanyuan, who was covered in injuries, being chased by numerous immortal cultivators, her heart clenched. She could not help but cry out in alarm, especially when one of the immortal cultivators thrust his sword towards his back. "Husband!" she shouted in a trembling voice as she flew over. From a distance, she could see that the sword had been blocked somehow. She took a closer look and realized that it was Yang Yang's family, the ghost cultivators, who were protecting her. "Let's go!" Zhao Yang's grandfather shouted in a low voice. As he blocked the sword of the fairy realm expert, he asked his son and daughter-in-law to quickly protect Feng Sanyuan and leave. Feng Sanyuan gritted his teeth and could only cover his wound as he continued to flee. However, when he heard the words, "husband," his heart shook. He looked towards the source of the voice and asked in a trembling voice, "Sushi? You? Why are you here? Shouldn't she have left? Shouldn't she have left with their child? Why was she still here? If she was here, then what about their child? Was the child all right?" Chapter 1654. Feng Sanyuan cried out in alarm, his heart in his throat. He saw a cultivator behind Sushi holding a sword and stabbing towards her. Seeing that the sword was filled with killing intent, Feng Sanyuan dashed out and pounced towards her. Sensing the murderous intent behind her, Sushi turned her head and saw the fairy realm expert's long sword coming towards her. A powerful pressure enveloped her, and she wanted to dodge it. However, due to the opponent's powerful pressure and force, her whole body froze on the spot, unable to move. She could only look on helplessly as the long sword pierced towards her. Bang! She was suddenly pushed down and rolled on the ground, hitting some rocks. Before she could react, she was brought to the side, and a familiar voice sounded in her ears. "Run!" Feng Sanyuan pushed her away and urged her to leave quickly. "Run! Run! Ha, none of you will be able to escape." The two fairy realm cultivators in front and behind closed in, staring at the two of them with bloodthirsty eyes. As for Zhao Yang's grandfather, who had blocked the sword for Feng Sanyuan, he had already been killed by the sharp sword. Now, only Zhao Yang's parents were left by Feng Sanyuan and Sushi's side. As for the other Phoenix guards and shadow guards who were originally protecting them, they had all died in the process of protecting them. None of them had survived. We can't escape. The barrier has trapped us here. Even without the barrier, we won't be able to escape from these people. Su Shi didn't leave. Instead, she stood beside Feng Sanyuan. Even if I die, I will die with you. The two fairy realm cultivators looked at them playfully. Not far away, there were still some people in the air. However, those people didn't come over. In their eyes, these people were too weak. They were so weak that they could crush them with a single finger. Asking so many of them to come and exterminate such a small imperial family was too much of a waste of talent. However, what surprised them was that the people here were all trying their best to protect their master. This loyalty made them look at them in a new light. Husband and wife were birds in the same forest, but when disaster struck, they flew away separately. Especially in the immortal cultivation world, there were very few couples who went through life and death together. Therefore, when they saw this couple, they were a little surprised. On the other side, after Old Man Gung found Ren Xiang and the other 8 Phoenix guards, he followed them into the secret passage and sneaked into the palace through the secret passage. They couldn't enter the palace through the main door, and they couldn't fly through the sky. Fortunately, there was still a secret passage for them to sneak in. Where does this tunnel lead to? Can we really reach the palace? Old Master Gung asked the Phoenix guard in front of him. Yes, we've been there before, Ren Xiang replied, his voice slightly heavy. I just don't know if the retired emperor and the others are still alive. Thinking that they might have been killed, his heart couldn't help but tremble. If retired emperor and the others died, how would they have the face-to-face master? But even if there was a fluke, the strength of those people was so strong that almost the entire imperial city shook when they appeared. With such strong strength, who here could resist? But whether they are still alive or not, we must rescue their children. Old Master Gung said with certainty, no matter what, they will definitely protect the child. Chapter 1655. When they rushed to the imperial palace from the passage, Feng Sanyuan and Su Shi, who had been forced into a corner, were standing in each other's arms. Under the pressure of the experts and their attacks, aside from internal injuries, they were also bleeding profusely. They were almost unable to hold on any longer. Run! Bang! Boom! With a loud shout, Zhao Yang's parents rushed towards the 2 fairy realm experts. In an instant, huge sparks erupted from their bodies. The 2 fairy realm experts, who were originally standing guard at the side, only frowned slightly. They raised their hands and sent out a stream of air to block them. The sparks exploded with a bang. Huge light and flames suddenly shot up. When the cultivators raised their sleeves to block the flames, Feng Sanyuan and Su Shi quickly left. Zhao Yang's parents turned into specks of light in the flames and disappeared into the air. Even when they died, they still tried to fight for a chance for Feng Sanyuan and Su Shi to live. They were ghost cultivators and had died long ago. Now that they could use their lives to exchange for a chance for their master's family to live, they felt that it was worth it. When the fairy realm experts raised their eyes to look again, the 2 figures had already disappeared. Seeing this, they sneered, 2 ants want to escape from under our noses. Is that even possible? One of the fairy realm experts scanned the area with his divine sense and said to 2 of them. They went to the palace in front. You 2 go and deal with them. We'll go back and report. Yes. 2 of them, who were at the early stage of the fairy realm, responded and flew forward, while the others turned around and left. It was just 2 people. They couldn't do anything, and they couldn't escape from the fairy realm experts. The order they received was to destroy the imperial palace and kill everyone inside. Now, all they could see were corpses. As long as they dealt with those 2 people, their mission should be considered complete. Su Shi supported the heavily injured Feng Sanyuan and rushed forward. She, who was already exhausted, forced herself to hold on. Along the way, Blood seeped out from her wounds and dripped onto the ground, leaving a trail behind. "Husband, you must hold on. You must hold on." She didn't know what to say. Her mind was in a mess, and she could only tell him to hold on. She was telling him, and also telling herself. Sushi, where's ye, Feng Sanyuan spat out a mouthful of blood, his voice weak as he asked. If it wasn't for Sushi supporting him, he probably wouldn't be able to walk anymore. "He's fine, he's safe," Sushi said in a low voice. She struggled to support him as they walked. Even though she knew they couldn't escape, she wasn't willing to give up and wait for death. She saw that the palace was right in front of her, but she saw flames rising from the surroundings and enveloping the entire palace. There was no way to escape from the front, and no way to retreat from the back. She stood there in a daze, and her entire being sank into despair. "There's no way out. Sanyuan, I don't think we can escape," she muttered to herself. This place was surrounded by flames on 3 sides, and she was being chased by a fairy realm expert. How could she possibly escape? Where could he escape to? Sushi, I'm sorry. I wasn't able to protect you, but I had to make you come with me. Bang! Bang! Chapter 1656. I really don't know why such ants would waste so much of our manpower. If we want to destroy this place, just the 2 of us are enough. 2 fairy realm cultivators stood where Feng Sanyuan and Sushi had been standing just now. They looked at the 2 people who had been sent flying into the flames and were now lying motionless on the ground. "After taking one of our palms, they will definitely die," the other fairy realm cultivator said. He glanced at the 2 people whose auras were extremely weak and said, "It's really a waste of talent to deal with such people." They were very angry that they had been called here to silence these people. However, since the others had come, they had no choice but to come. Therefore, they vented their anger and dissatisfaction on these people who were very weak in their eyes. Who asked them to offend these people? They had sent fairy realm cultivators to take their lives. Did they want to live? It was simply impossible. About 100 meters away, Old Man Gung, Ren Xiang, and the others, who had just come out of the secret passage, happened to see this scene. When they saw Feng Sanyuan and Sushi being sent flying by the 2 fairy realm cultivators and thrown into the burning palace, their hearts sank. They wanted to rush out, but they were stopped by Old Man Gung. "Do you want to die?" Old Man Gung shouted at them in a low voice. He pulled them back to hide and let them restrain their auras. Those are fairy realm cultivators. Their strength is far above the nascent soul realm. Even if you go out, you will die under their pressure before you can even get close. Ren Xiang and the others clenched their fists tightly. Blue veins appeared on the back of their hands. They were trying their best to suppress the monstrous killing intent in their hearts. Because they were worried that they would be discovered, they asked the other Phoenix guards to stay in the secret passage. Only the 8 of them followed Old Man Gung out. However, they did not expect that, after walking for a short while, they would see the retired emperor and his wife being sent flying by the 2 fairy realm experts. They were on the verge of death as they fell into the flames. When they saw this scene, they were powerless to save them. Anger and murderous intent filled their hearts. "Are we just going to watch them die in the sea of fire?" one of them asked. His voice paused between each word, filled with unwillingness. "That's a fairy realm expert." The 2 of them were injured to such an extent, and they were struck by a palm strike from the back. That palm strike must have shattered their heart meridians. They won't be able to survive. Old Master Gung said sadly, "So what if you go out? Even if you go out, you will only be making unnecessary sacrifices. Don't tell me you want to sacrifice your lives to bring back their corpses." Or do you think you've lived enough and want to walk out and let them kill you?" Hearing his words, the 8 people gradually calmed down, forcefully suppressing the unwillingness, anger, and killing intent in their hearts. Search. Little Feng Yi must still be alive. He must still be somewhere in the palace. Ren Xiang loosened his clenched fists as he spoke. He looked at them and said, "Let's split up and search. We must find little Feng Yi as soon as possible." "Okay." The others replied. They then added, "Be careful. Don't let those people find you." The 8 people split into 4 groups and quickly dispersed. Old Man Geng also went in another direction to search. No matter what, they had to find the child. Otherwise, how could they face the Phoenix couple? Chapter 1657. Every time they saw a familiar person die tragically, the hearts of the Phoenix guards clenched. On one hand, they were avoiding those people who were searching the palace, and on the other hand, they were looking for little Feng Yi, who might be hiding. However, after searching a few palaces, they did not see anyone. They could not help but think that there might be a secret passage somewhere in the palace. Otherwise, it was impossible for them to not be able to find anyone. However, where was this secret passage? They only knew the passage that they had used to enter the palace, but they did not know anything else. If they searched the entire palace, they might not even be able to keep their lives, let alone find little Feng Yi. On the other side, the 2 fairy realm powerhouses watched as the palace was engulfed in raging flames. They watched as the pillars inside the palace collapsed and fell on the 2 people. Only then did they turn around and leave in satisfaction to report back to their superiors. Therefore, they did not see a white figure walk out from the flames and push aside the pillar. After checking that the 2 of them were still breathing, the figure brought the 2 of them into a room in the palace and left through a secret passageway under the bed in the room. That night, not only did the imperial palace burst into flames, even the Feng Manor was destroyed. However, the people in the Feng Manor had already fled. There were not many casualties, but even if this was the case, it still caused people to sigh endlessly. In the sky, when the sky gradually brightened, the black flying ship left with the people. It was as if it had come quietly. When it left, it turned into a light arrow and disappeared into the sky. No one knew where it went. Only 4 fairy realm powerhouses and a few nascent soul cultivators were left here, waiting for the few people from the Feng family who had escaped the net. The Phoenix guards and the others searched for the entire night, but they could not find little Feng Yi's hiding place. However, the only thing that made them rejoice was that they did not find little Feng Yi and Zhao Yang's corpses among the corpses. Thus, they were certain that the 2 children were definitely together. They quietly left through the secret passage. Because there were some people watching the Feng Manor and the palace, they could not go back. Thus, they hid in the usual spot to discuss. When the sky brightened, the 4 fairy realm powerhouses who had stayed behind began to spread the word that if anyone dared to take in the Feng family, they would be punished with the extermination of their entire family. When these words were spoken, the various forces in the palace were in a state of panic. One was that he didn't know who these people were. The other was that the barrier that trapped the imperial palace had been broken. It was said that none of the people inside had survived. Feng Sanyuan and his wife had both died in the Sea of Fire. As for their youngest son, Feng Yi, his whereabouts were unknown. Some said that they died in the chaos, some said that they were buried in the Sea of Fire, some said that they were rescued, and some said that they escaped. As the days passed, the people in the city worried that their families would be wiped out didn't happen. However, they knew that outside the imperial city, as well as inside the imperial city, there were people from those people watching to see if there were any survivors from the Feng family. The first to receive the news was the Yanhal's people. They quickly reported the news of the Phoenix dynasty. On the other hand, they were secretly investigating. Just who was this group of people that suddenly appeared and destroyed the Feng clan? Chapter 1658. The Yen Palace's people secretly contacted the Phoenix Guards. On one hand, they were secretly organizing the Phoenix Imperial Palace, while on the other hand, they were waiting for Fengzhou and the others to return. And in a town a certain distance away from the Imperial City, the 7 or 8-year-old Zhao Yang was holding the 3-year-old Feng Ye's hand as they walked in an alley. Both of them had changed into the clothes of an ordinary child. Moreover, the little Feng Yi was still wearing a small floral cloth skirt. His hair was tied into 2 braids, and he looked exactly like a little girl. No one would have thought that such an exquisite little girl was the little master that the Phoenix Guards couldn't find even after searching the entire Imperial City. Yang, are my parents still alive? They must be alive, right? The little boy's voice was tender and soft, with an indescribable determination. In his heart, he firmly believed that his parents must still be alive. Yes, he's alive. He must be alive. Zhao Yang nodded with a serious look on his face. Yang, where are we going? Will we be caught and sold by bad people? The little boy's face was full of worry. He had never been out so far and didn't know where he was. He only knew that he had woken up and was here, with only Yang by his side. No, I will protect you, Zhao Yang said as he held his hand and walked forward. That day, he left along the secret passage. He kept walking and walking until he realized that the place he came out of was no longer the Imperial City, but a place without people outside the Imperial City. He was afraid that there would be danger in the Imperial City, so he didn't dare to go back. He could only keep walking with the little master until they came to this town. In order to fool people, he helped him change into the clothes of a little girl. He thought that since there was some distance from the Imperial City, those people wouldn't be able to find this place even if they wanted to. They would wait here, and when they heard the news of the princess' return, they would go back to take a look. Yang, I'm hungry. The little boy smelled the fragrance of the buns and didn't leave. He stared at the buns in front of him and swallowed his saliva. There's dry food, here. He took out a piece of biscuit from the Qinquan bag at his waist and gave it to him. We can't spend money recklessly outside. Children will be caught by bad people if they spend money recklessly. Although he was only 7 or 8 years old, he had received a lot of training. He knew what 2 children had to pay attention to outside. What they had to do was to minimize their presence as much as possible. Hearing that he would be taken away by bad guys, little Feng Yi didn't dare to throw a tantrum. He took the dried food and followed him to the alley. He sat down and ate in small bites. Although the 2 of them disguised themselves well through their clothes and behavior, little Feng Ye's delicate and outstanding little face still attracted some people's attention. A tall and thin man who was eating at a small stall stared at the 2 children as he ate. He saw that there were no adults around them, and from their clothes, they seemed to be children from an ordinary family. However, the little girl looked so delicate, and he couldn't help but have some thoughts. If this little girl was caught and sold, just based on her delicate little face, she would probably be worth a lot of money. Thinking of this, he revealed a malicious smile. After paying, he stood up and walked towards the 2 children sitting in the alley. Chapter 1659. Seeing this, the tall and thin man grinned, revealing a mouthful of disgusting yellow teeth. He looked around and saw that no one was paying attention to them, so he quickly chased after them. After entering the alley, he stopped the 2 children. Hey, children, where are your parents? He stood in front of the 2 children, revealing a weasel-like smile. Little Feng Yi looked at him while eating the dry food. He blinked his eyes and didn't speak. Zhao Yang asked, "What are you going to do?" Follow me, and I'll take you to eat delicious food. How about it? The tall and thin man grinned and approached the two children. He thought that it would be better to knock them out and carry them away. No. You're a bad guy. Go away. Little Feng Yi said and threw the dry food in his hand at him. Hey, that's not up to you. The tall and thin man sneered and went forward to pick up little Feng Yi. Unexpectedly, the little brat actually ran behind the older child and hid behind him. Seeing this, he smiled maliciously. You can't run away. Follow me obediently and you won't suffer. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he saw the 7 or 8-year-old boy take out a dagger from nowhere and hold it in his hand. The cold and defensive eyes, as well as the murderous aura and spiritual aura that permeated from his body, stunned him. He couldn't help but take a step back. He was a little stunned and surprised. You're a cultivator? Originally, he saw that the two children didn't have any spiritual aura, so he thought that they should be children from ordinary families. Unexpectedly, the aura that this 7 or 8-year-old boy emitted was spiritual aura, which made him feel shocked and hesitant. Such a young child had already begun to cultivate. He was definitely not a child from an ordinary family. Moreover, children from ordinary families rarely became cultivators. Although he couldn't cultivate, he could still distinguish between Xian Qi and spiritual aura. This child's aura was clearly spiritual aura. Looking at the murderous aura that burst out from his body, and the cold eyes that were like those of a small beast staring at him, he couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart, and all the hair on his body stood up. Don't be agitated, I'm just teasing you. Before he could finish his words, he saw the figure in front of him leap forward. His pupils shrank as he felt the pain of a sharp blade cutting across his throat. He instinctively reached out to block it, trying to suppress the little ghost. Little Feng Yi stood to the side and watched as Yang pounced on the man. However, her dagger failed to take his life. Instead, the bad guy grabbed her hand. Just as he was getting anxious, he saw Yang hugging the bad guy's leg and pushing him to the ground. She pounced on him and stabbed the bad guy's throat with her dagger. Ah! A miserable shriek rang out. In an instant, crimson blood gushed out like a fountain, dyeing the ground red. That person twitched on the ground until he died, motionless. Zhao Yang's hand trembled slightly as he held the dagger. His face was a little pale, but he bit his lips and forced himself to calm down. Looking at the motionless person, he was worried and stepped forward to check his breath. After confirming that he was dead, he quickly put away the dagger and left quickly with the stunned little Feng Yi in his arms. Chapter 1660. However, he couldn't show it. He couldn't be afraid because he had to protect his master, who was younger than him, until he found the princess. Little Feng Yi recovered from his daze. He could feel Yang's body trembling as she hugged him. He couldn't help but reach out his hand and pat Zhao Yang's head gently like how his father and mother used to comfort others. His soft voice softly rang out. Yang, don't be afraid. It's all right. Yi is with you. Hearing this, Zhao Yang's heart warmed and he gradually calmed down. I'm not afraid. He couldn't be afraid. If he was afraid, what would happen to his little master? He was younger than him. He was a soft little baby. He had to protect him. He had promised many people to protect him. On the other side, Feng Zhou and the rest were originally heading towards the Xianyuan dynasty. However, after hearing the news of the Phoenix dynasty, they quickly turned back. Xianyuan Mo's, who originally wanted to go back with them, could only return to the palace after receiving an urgent letter from his father. After about 10 days of flying, Feng Zhou and the rest finally entered the territory of the Phoenix dynasty. On the flying ship, the atmosphere was heavy. Feng Zhao's face was full of self-blame. If I didn't leave with the fire phoenix to find you, perhaps father and the rest wouldn't be in trouble. It's all my fault. It's all my fault that along the way, he had been blaming himself. He felt that it was because he left with the fire phoenix that his father and the rest fell into a desperate situation. If the fire phoenix was there, no matter how bad the situation was, she would at least be able to protect them. But now, his father died tragically. More than half of the Feng family's phoenix guards were killed. One by one, they died in the palace and were buried in the sea of fire. As for them, they didn't even know who the murderer was. He didn't deserve to be a son. Father, don't blame yourself. If you want to blame someone, then blame me. It must be because of me that grandfather and the rest were buried in the sea of fire. I'm the one who caused all this. It's just that grandfather and the rest are no longer here, but little Feng Yi is still alive. We have to find little Feng Yi first. Feng Jiu also felt terrible. She felt that these people might be her enemies. She was the one who implicated her family. When she thought of the grandfather who doted on her being buried in the sea of fire, her heart clenched into a ball. She was in so much pain that she couldn't breathe. Her grandfather's voice, when he called her in the past, seemed to echo in her ears. On the street, he sat in front of a wine shop, holding a wine gourd and asking for wine. He even complained that the wine was not good. At that time, her face was disfigured and covered with a veil, but he could recognize her at a glance. It was that call of little Feng that melted and warmed her cold and indifferent heart. Clearly, she was just a latecomer. Clearly, she had nothing to do with them. However, when they called her Feng girl, protected her time and time again, and showed her selfless love and trust, she gradually integrated into the Feng family and treated them as family. She wanted to give them the best. She wanted them to be happy. But now, because of her, they were buried in the sea of fire. Every time she thought of this, it was as if someone was using a knife to cut her heart. Who was it? Who wanted to exterminate her family? Who wanted to kill her family? Chapter 1661. Don't blame yourselves, father and daughter. The most important thing right now is to hurry back. Only when you get home will you know what to do and how to do it. Now, no matter how much you blame yourselves, it's useless. Shengwan Wanrong said softly, glancing at them, when we get back, the most important thing is to find the child. No news now is also good news, so you don't have to worry too much. Both of them were silent and didn't speak. Seeing this, Leng Hua and the others on the airship couldn't help but worry. Apart from consuming spirit stones, flying for a long time was also unbearable. Therefore, when they saw that the sky was getting dark and that they were in the territory of the Phoenix dynasty, they stopped outside a town and went into the city to find an inn to rest for the night. They planned to continue tomorrow. Calculating the distance from here, with the flying ship speed, they should be able to reach the imperial city in 2 or 3 days. The closer they were, the more anxious they were to return, and the more they didn't want to go back and see all those sorrowful things. After dinner, everyone sat for a while and chatted for a while, then returned to their rooms to rest. However, in the middle of the night, everyone suddenly heard movement on the roof. They weren't in a deep sleep, so when they heard the commotion, they all jumped up from the window and leaped to the roof. Feng Jiu saw a black-clothed man skimming on the roof. After discovering her, he shot several arrows at her and then quickly fled. Seeing this, she shouted to Du Fan and the others behind her, "Protect my father and mother." As soon as she finished speaking, she had already jumped several meters away. Guan Shilin, who jumped out from behind, saw this and said to them, "I'll go and take a look." He was a bit worried about her chasing after him alone. Du Fan and the others looked at each other, then went down to the inn and joined Feng Xiao and the others. Master and young Master Guan went out to chase after the person. Master and Madam, please wait in the room. Did you see who it was? Feng Xiao asked in a low voice. How strong is that person? With just the two of them chasing after the person, if the enemy was too strong, he was afraid that there's only one person, so there shouldn't be a problem, Du Fan said, looking at the fire phoenix standing on Shangguan Wanrong's shoulder in her bird form. She knew that her master was worried, so she left Fire Phoenix behind to protect them. However, just as they finished speaking, they suddenly saw a long sword coming from outside. Feng Xiao immediately drew his long sword to block and attacked the person outside the window. The two figures fought in the night. After a few moves, the man in black looked deeply at Feng Xiao. A dark light flashed in his eyes, and he immediately turned and fled. All of you, stand guard. Protect Madam. Feng Xiao shouted and chased after the man. He thought that this must have something to do with the enemy who killed his father. Perhaps they were sent by those people. As long as they caught one, they would be able to find out who the mastermind was. Therefore, no matter what, they couldn't let him escape. Because he only wanted to catch the person, he didn't notice the light that flashed in that person's eyes and chased after him. However, after he chased for several hundred meters, he saw that person standing in an empty alley, waiting for him. Seeing this, he stared at him vigilantly. He noticed that this person was a strong man in the intermediate stage of the fairy realm. At this moment, he was even more certain that this person must have something to do with the enemy who killed his father. Chapter 1662. Feng Xiao, you're the monarch of the Phoenix dynasty. I didn't expect you to be such a muddle-headed person. With a person like you as the monarch, the Phoenix dynasty will be annexed and destroyed by other countries sooner or later. That person sneered and looked at him as if he was mocking and ridiculing him. There was even a hint of playfulness in his expression, as if he had found something fun. What happens to my country has nothing to do with you. Today, I must catch you. Find out the person behind the scenes who attacked our Feng family. His voice was cold and sharp. With a pair of tiger-like eyes, he released his dark force aura and stabbed the long sword into the ground. He grabbed the air with both hands, and the surging dark force aura condensed the airflow in the air into his hands. The whistling airflow wrapped around his fists, and with a thought, he suddenly punched out with both fists. Eat my fist. Ha! With a low roar, he punched out with both fists. The two fists seemed to contain the power of 1,000 pounds. As the fists were punched out, the airflow around the fists formed two huge fists that suddenly collided with each other. That person didn't expect him to attack as soon as he said he would. Moreover, his aura was so ferocious. Both of his fists were like a ferocious tiger descending from the mountain as they pounced towards him. Before they collided, the powerful aura and pressure of the martial god had already forced him to take a few steps back. He lost his balance and almost fell to the ground. He steadied himself at the last moment, and after stabilizing his body, he quickly condensed a stream of spiritual energy and attacked forward. The two streams of spiritual energy collided with a bang and bounced off. Because of this, the two of them retreated a few meters away, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corners of their mouths. Feng Xiao didn't pay attention to the fluctuation of qi and blood in his body. When he saw that the black-clothed man was also injured, he wanted to take advantage of the situation to chase after him. The airflow in his body surged, and his dark force aura burst out, increasing his speed again. The next moment, he flew out, and his fist, which contained killing intent, swung toward the black-clothed man. On the other side, Fengzhou and Guan Shilin chased after the black-robed man. Originally, there was only one black-robed man, but after he reached the outskirts of the city, several black-robed men emerged from the shadows. These black-robed men's abilities were all at the level of fairy realm. Looking at the 7 or 8 fairy realm experts, Guan Xilin's heart tightened. Sure enough, his instincts were right. He had felt somewhat uneasy just now, and he had sensed danger, which was why he had followed them here. It was fortunate that he had followed them here. Otherwise, how could Xiaojiu deal with 7 or 8 fairy realm experts by himself? However, who sent these people? She actually tried so hard to take her life. An ordinary faction would not have so many fairy realm experts. Moreover, how did they know that they were staying here? It was as if their every move and action had been seen by these people in the dark. Such terrifying certainty and control made him feel inexplicably uneasy. It was as if this was the most unfathomable faction they had encountered in a long time. Moreover, until now, they still didn't know who these people were. Did Xiaojiu provoke such a strong and powerful faction? As far as he knew, she didn't. Then, why did these people target her again and again? Chapter 1663. It was important to note that any one of these powerhouses, be it in the Phoenix dynasty, other countries, or any of the forces of the 8 great empires, was already a powerhouse who could dominate an entire region. However, there were so many powerhouses here just to kill Fengjiu. Fengjiu's gaze swept past each of these people. So many powerhouses of the fairy realm, where did they come from? When did she provoke such a person? Attack! One of the cultivators at the peak of the fairy realm shouted. As soon as he gave the order, several other people instantly attacked the two of them. Seeing this, Guan Xilin immediately took out his large knife and slashed forward, while Fengjiu also took out her Qingfeng sword to meet the enemy. In an instant, the airflow in the air solidified due to their fighting spirit. A strong pressure and sharp airflow flowed in the air. The airflow was as sharp as knives and swords, slicing through their bodies and leaving holes in their clothes. The sound of swords clashing rang out, and the smell of blood also spread in the air. Although Guan Xilin's body was not seriously injured, the back of his hand and face were cut by the airflow. Fresh blood seeped out, and it was a horrifying sight. Several powerhouses of the fairy realm joined forces, and the main attacker was Fengjiu. Even though her strength was outstanding and her combat ability was shocking, she could not fight against so many of them. Whoosh! A sharp airflow slashed past, and Fengjiu gasped. Looking at the wound on her arm caused by the opponent's sword, she gritted her teeth and glanced coldly at the attacker. Another sword slashed at her calf, causing her to stagger. Due to the injury on her calf, she fell forward and blocked an attack from one of them, but she could not block the attacks from all around her. These people could have attacked her fatal spots, but they only cut her limbs and did not directly take her life. This made her feel that something was not right. Xiaojiu. When he saw Fengjiu being besieged by a group of people, he felt his heart ache. Fengjiu was heavily outnumbered, and her body was covered in wounds. Fresh blood seeped out of her red clothes and dripped onto the ground. This was especially the case when he saw a fairy realm expert holding a sword and thrusting it toward her shoulder. Yes! The sharp sword pierced through from his shoulder to his back. The blood dripping from the sword made one's heart tremble. Brother! Fengjiu's heart clenched. Seeing him block that sword for her, she felt resentful and helpless at the same time. She had always thought that she was very strong, but when she was surrounded and attacked by so many experts, she realized that no matter how strong she was still outnumbered. At this moment, she was indignant and furious. She was outnumbered, and her strength was not strong enough to protect everything. She had known this for a long time. However, increasing one's strength was not something that could be done in just 2 or 3 days. Even if she wanted to increase her strength, her foundation was not stable, and the opportunity was not right. Even if she had the pills as a foundation, she would not be able to increase her strength and cultivation in an extremely short period of time. At the same time, on the other side, Feng Xiao and the black-clothed man had fought a few more rounds. The two of them were actually evenly matched, and after a round of fighting, both of them had suffered internal injuries. Pooh! The black-clothed man spat out a mouthful of blood. Feeling the fluctuation of the aura in his body and the taste of blood in his mouth, he could not help but laugh coldly. He raised his hand and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. Seeing that Feng Xiao still wanted to fight, he revealed a strange smile. Chapter 1664. Hearing this, Feng Xiao furrowed his brows and shouted, "What nonsense are you spouting?" "Nonsense? He, that's why I said you're muddle-headed. You can't even tell if the person beside you is your daughter." That person chuckled and glanced at him with a sinister gaze. "That's right, it seems like this isn't the first time you can't recognize your daughter." Hearing this, Feng Xiao's heart skipped a beat. How did this person know so much about their matters? He couldn't recognize his daughter. Was he referring to the matter with Su Ruoyun a few years ago? And now he said he couldn't recognize his daughter. Could it be that the daughter beside him was also a fake? Impossible. This was simply impossible. Don't make irresponsible remarks. This is simply impossible. How could I not recognize my own daughter? He shouted sternly, his heart filled with anger. Back then, he couldn't recognize his own daughter and let her wander outside and suffer so much. He couldn't make this kind of mistake again. Irresponsible remarks. Ha 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 ha. That person raised his head and laughed loudly. His laughter suddenly stopped, and he said, "Our people have already investigated. Before we decided to deal with your Feng family, we investigated every single one of you from childhood to adulthood. However, what we found very interesting is that your Feng family was at most a general's estate in the past. Being able to seize the Murong family's empire and establish the Phoenix dynasty was truly all thanks to one person." That person stared at him with a smile that wasn't a smile. I don't need to say who this person is. I think King Feng should be very clear about it, right? That's right, it's your precious daughter, Fengzhou. Hee, but according to what I know, your daughter's original name isn't Fengzhou, but Feng Qingge. My daughter likes to be called Fengzhou. So what? Could it be that just based on a name, you can say that she's not my daughter? Ridiculous. Feng Xiao snorted in a deep voice, "She's my daughter, so she's my daughter. No matter what my daughter does, I won't doubt it. Don't even think about trying to drive a wedge between us and distract us." As soon as his voice fell, he held the sword in his hand. His anger and profound energy aura intertwined as he attacked the person in front of him. "If you have the time to spout nonsense, then take another strike from me." The imposing and swift sword that contained a powerful profound energy aura struck out. The sword let out a rumbling sound, and the profound energy transformed into a swift and fierce airflow that directly attacked the black-robed man in front of him. His killing intent overflowed, and his battle intent was biting cold. With every step he took, the ground seemed to tremble slightly. Seeing this, the man in black quickly retreated. "Feng Xiao, you're a father in vain. You don't even know that your own daughter has been possessed by someone else. You even treat the old monster who has possessed your daughter's body as your daughter. It's really funny, ha 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 ha." Possession. Feng Xiao was stunned and stopped the attack in his hand. He stood there stiffly and looked at the black-clothed man in shock. "You said possession. How is this possible?" Seeing him freeze and stop, the black-clothed man's eyes flashed with a dark light and said, "How is it not possible? I've said it before. Our people have already investigated. Your daughter was possessed by your current daughter when that Su Ruoyun schemed against her, disfigured her, and sold her to a brothel. Chapter 1665. Impossible. Feng Shao shouted agitatedly and pointed his sword at him in anger. You're spouting nonsense. No, I'm not spouting nonsense. I'm just stating the facts that you've overlooked. That person sneered. After your daughter returned home from a dangerous situation, didn't her personality change completely? Your daughter has lived for 15 or 16 years. Even if she's beautiful, her cultivation has always been mediocre. She doesn't know how to refine pills and make medicine. She hasn't even met an ordinary sacred beast, so how could she have met an ancient divine beast as soon as she went out? You want to say that it was her luck? Hee, then why didn't she have such luck in the past? Is an ancient divine beast something that anyone can meet just because they want to? Is alchemy something that anyone can learn just because they want to? Who is her master? Where did she learn all her skills from? Don't you think all of this is strange? If an old monster hadn't taken over her body, then how could she have learned so many things in one night? If she hadn't been taken over, then how could her temperament have changed so much? She did all those things that others couldn't do. This isn't something that a teenage girl can do. If she hadn't been taken over, then how can these things be explained? It's really a waste that you're Feng Chinga's father. I reckon that your daughter won't be able to rest in peace until she dies. Her own family killed her and took over her body and doted on that old monster as their own daughter. Tell me, how can your daughter rest in peace? Stop talking. Shut up. Feng Zhao's eyes were red as he angrily shouted. His body was trembling and his heart was filled with fear. He couldn't believe that all of this was true. However, every word that person said was like a thunderclap that exploded in his heart. It made him feel fear and he couldn't accept it. If all of this was true. His blood and chi clashed and his mind was shaken. Under this powerful impact, he lost his guard and a mouthful of blood gushed out from his throat. With a puff, he spat out a mouthful of blood and staggered back. He only felt the world spinning around him and he couldn't even stand steadily and fell to the ground. This matter is very interesting, isn't it? After our investigation and analysis, we also feel that this matter is very interesting. That person walked closer step by step and said, Do you think we don't know what Yan Dian and the Phoenix Guards did? No, we already knew that they killed our people and tried to infiltrate us on behalf of those people. It's just that our Lord was too lazy to bother with them. You guys are just ants that he has nothing better to do. Not to mention exterminating those people in your palace, even exterminating your entire Phoenix dynasty is just a matter of a word to us. However, my master has changed his mind and plans to let you guys go. At this point, the black-clothed man revealed a strange smile. Do you know why I let you go? Because my lord is the same as me. He also thinks that this matter is very interesting. Feng Shao sat on the ground in a daze as if he couldn't hear his words. His head felt like it was going to explode. His mind was replaying the things that the man had said that they had neglected. Chapter 1666. Not only was your daughter killed by her possession, but your father and the others were also implicated by her. She's a scourge. How could you treat an old monster who killed your daughter and father as your daughter? Your Feng family will be destroyed even without us doing anything. The black-robed man stopped in front of Feng Shao as he spoke. He looked at him, who was sitting on the ground and trembling. He smiled coldly and squatted down, whispering into Feng Zhao's ear, treating an old monster who destroyed your family as your daughter, and doting on your enemy as much as you can. You're a failure as a son and a failure as a father. Under the collision of qi and blood, Feng Shao spat out another mouthful of blood. He only felt his vision turn black, and he fainted. Until the moment before he fainted, that sentence still echoed in his mind. In vain as a son, in vain as a father. On the other side, the cultivators of the fairy realm who were attacking Fengzhou and Guan Shilin heard a signal. Their leader shouted for them to retreat, and they quickly left. Just like how they came, there was no trace of them, and no one knew where they went. Pfft! Guan Shilin spat out a mouthful of blood, and he couldn't help but kneel down. The wounds on his body were shocking, but when he opened his mouth, the first thing he asked was, "Xiao Zhou, how are you?" Fengzhou's calf was also cut, and he was limping. She went forward to support him, and took out a pill for him to consume. "I'm fine. They're all minor injuries." "Those people left. Why didn't they kill you?" Guan Shilin asked, puzzled. They clearly had the chance to kill them. After all, so many strong cultivators of the fairy realm joined forces. It was too easy for them to kill the two of them. Fengzhou shook his head. "I'm not sure. These people didn't plan to kill us from the beginning." She couldn't understand this either. Why didn't they kill her when they had such a good opportunity? "Let's go back first. Fortunately, they didn't kill us. Otherwise, we would have died here today." Guan Shilin helped her up and asked, "Xiao Zhou, how's the wound on your calf? You didn't injure yourself, did you?" "Yeah, I didn't hurt any bones or tendons," Fengzhou said as he tossed out the flying feather and jumped onto it with Guan Shilin. The two sat on the flying feather and headed towards the inn. At the inn, the fire phoenix was also waiting anxiously. If it wasn't for its master's orders not to leave, it would have already flown out to look for her. Life-bonded beasts naturally had a telepathic connection, and it could faintly feel that its master wasn't doing too well. "They've been out for so long, why haven't they returned yet?" Shengguan Wanrong said worriedly, walking back and forth in the room. She came to the window and looked down, saying, "How about we go out and look for him? Let's wait a little longer. Maybe they've already returned." Du Fan said, looking at Shengguan Wanrong, "Master and Master are most worried about Madam." "Madam, don't worry. Let's wait and see. After half an hour, if they haven't returned, we'll go and look for them. I'll wait outside," Leng Hua said as he walked out, intending to wait for them outside the inn. If he waited outside, he would be able to see them from afar. Be careful. Chapter 1667. Hearing the sound, everyone looked out of the window and saw Fengzhou and Guan Shilin sitting on Flying Feather coming towards them. However, when they heard that they had returned and saw that the blood and wounds on their bodies had disappeared without a trace, they all gasped and their hearts were in their mouths. Du Fan, Ling Hua and Ling Shuang quickly rushed over to support them and brought them back to the room to help them sit down. "Master, how did you get hurt so badly? Clearly, there was only one person chasing after them. Could it be that there was an ambush?" Fengzhou didn't answer. Instead, after looking around at everyone, she didn't see her father's figure. Her heart sank and she asked, "Where's my father?" Later, the men in black attacked again. "Master chased after them and hasn't come back yet," Du Fan said. As soon as he finished speaking, he felt that something was wrong. Even his master and Guan Shilin were injured like this. Then, would Feng Shao also encounter an ambush when he went out? Immediately, he said, "I'll go look for him immediately." "Fire Phoenix, you go with me," Fengzhou said and asked Fire Phoenix to go with her. She was worried that her father would encounter an ambush. If that was the case, the consequences would be unimaginable. "Your injuries." Fire Phoenix hesitated. In its opinion, no one's safety was more important than her. Now that she was injured like this, could it leave to look for her father? "I'm fine. It's just a flesh wound." She spoke slowly, but the pain from her wound caused her face to turn paler and sweat appeared on her forehead. Fire Phoenix, go quickly. I'll take care of him here. Nothing will happen. Shangguan Wanrong said. She was also worried that Feng Xiao would encounter an ambush. If she had known, she would have asked him not to chase after them. Fire Phoenix, go quickly. Godfather's safety is more important. Guan Shilin urged. All right, I'll go look for it. You guys must be careful. Fire Phoenix said, and then went out with Du Fan. Xiao Zhou, let's apply some medicine and bandage your wound. Shangguan Wanrong and Leng Hua helped Guan Shilin up and walked towards the inner room, while telling Leng Hua to help Guan Shilin apply medicine and treat Guan Shilin's wounds. After the wounds on their bodies were treated, they changed into new clothes. However, after such a long time, they still hadn't seen them come back. Feng Jiu and Shangguan Wanrong felt increasingly uneasy. Ling Shuang, Leng Hua, you two go out and help look. Feng Jiu signaled. Yes. The two of them replied, then turned around and walked out. There were only 3 people left sitting in the room. Shangguan Wanrong looked at the 2 injured people and asked, who did this? Do you know? Feng Jiu shook his head. I don't know. I only know that the people who were sent here were all strong men of the fairy realm. Their strength can't be underestimated. I'm afraid that it's not an ordinary force. What's strange is that they clearly had the chance to kill us, but they didn't. Hearing this, Shangguan Wanrong was also puzzled. Why is that? Do they have other motives? I don't know. Feng Jiu said, looking outside. I just hope that father is fine. Chapter 1668. He's all right. His injuries are only superficial, and his internal injuries aren't serious, she said slowly. Then, she supported herself against the table and sat down. She could finally relax. Her grandfather and the others were gone, and she already blamed herself for this. She didn't dare to imagine that if her father had been killed because of her, then his injuries aren't serious. Then why is he unconscious? Guan Shilin asked, a little worried. Shangguan Wanrong also checked Feng Zhao's pulse and retracted her hand. Just as Xiao Zhou said, his injuries are all superficial, and his internal injuries aren't serious. He fainted because his blood and qi were flowing in the opposite direction. He must have suffered a great shock, which caused him to lose consciousness. He should be able to wake up after resting and taking some medicine to calm his nerves. That's right. Feng Jiu nodded. She was sure that her father's body didn't have any fatal injuries. This made her feel relieved, but at the same time, she felt a little uneasy. What were those people trying to do? Why did they attack them but not take their lives? In the past, she always knew who her opponents were, but this time, she didn't even know who her enemies were. She didn't know when they had made enemies, but on the contrary, the other party knew their whereabouts like the back of their hand. This made her feel a little uneasy. She had a feeling that something unexpected was going to happen. It's good that he's fine, Guan Shilin said, then said to Du Fan and Leng Hua, help him in and bandage his wounds first. Okay, the two answered, and carried the unconscious Feng Xiao in. At this time, Feng Jiu looked at the fire phoenix and asked, where did you find my father? Was there anyone else around at the time? It was in a small alley. When we found him, he was already unconscious. He was the only one around. But looking at the traces in that area, he should have fought with a strong fighter of the fairy realm, the fire phoenix said, flapping its wings and landing on the table. Feng Jiu pursed her lips, deep in thought. It was like this again. They only injured him but didn't kill him. What were those people trying to do? At the same time, in a dense forest outside the city, on a spaceship, the strong fighters of the fairy realm who attacked Fingzhou and the others were reporting the battle situation to their master. We did as our master said. We only injured them but didn't take their lives. After receiving the signal, we came back directly. The 7 or 8 people who were attacking Feng Jiu and Guan Shilin said to the people on the boat. Another fighter of the fairy realm. Feng Xiao couldn't take it and vomited blood and fainted. I believe that there will be a good show when he's awake. Feng Xiao couldn't take it, he vomited blood, he'd ant. Feng's teeth. Hee, this Feng Jiu is quite a character. But I wonder where this person's soul came from. He's got all kinds of skills. He's really a genius. Even if I wanted to kill him, I couldn't bear to. The voice wasn't real, and it was changing. It was as if it wasn't his original voice. It was impossible to tell whether the person was male or female, old or young. They only knew that the voice contained a powerful pressure that made people's hearts tremble. Even the strong fighters of the fairy realm who were outside couldn't help but lower their heads respectfully when they heard his voice. What do you think? What will Feng Xiao do to Fingzhou next? Was he going to pretend that nothing had happened? Or will he kill the shade who took over his daughter's body and ruined his family? Chapter 1669. When the cultivators of the fairy realm heard this, they looked at each other but didn't speak. Because they couldn't be sure. The people of the Feng family couldn't be guessed with a normal person's mentality. Master's plan to sow discord might work on others, but it was hard to say whether it would work on the people of the Feng family. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so interested in this. They were interested because things were unknown. Even they couldn't know how things would develop until the end. Seeing that no one spoke, the person inside asked, "What's wrong?" "You can't say." "Is this question difficult to answer?" Everyone hesitated. In the end, one of them replied, "Master, this subordinate really can't guess the thoughts of the people of the Feng family. If it was an ordinary person, I believe that after learning about this matter, they would definitely be at odds. However, I don't know what Feng Xiao will do. However, this subordinate thinks that we should know soon." As long as they waited for Feng Xiao to wake up, they would naturally know how he would deal with this matter. Pfft. That person sneered, "I don't have so much time to stay here. Dealing with the Feng family is just a matter of convenience. What we really want to deal with is not these insignificant ants." After saying that, without waiting for those people to speak, the voice sounded again, "However, I'm very interested in what will happen to their family. How about this? Leave one person to watch over them and see how they deal with this matter." "Yes." Everyone responded. One of them hesitated, stepped forward, and asked, "Master, after the result is out, will the Feng family still be destroyed? How will this Fingzhou be dealt with? This woman is extraordinary. This subordinate is worried that if she is allowed to grow, she will definitely become a big problem in the future." Definitely become a big problem. You really think highly of her. She's just a woman. Even if she's an old monster who stole someone else's body, what can she do? Can she overturn the heavens with her own strength? That person said disapprovingly, "Let the Feng family do as they please. No matter what, it's just a small dynasty. It can't become a big deal. As for that Fingzhou, I'm curious about her future path. Let's wait and see. What I'm interested in now is how Feng Xiao will treat Fingzhou after he wakes up. Put everything else aside." Knowing their master's temper, they didn't dare to say anything and could only respectfully retreat to the side. When the sky was about to brighten, the airship left, leaving only one person to watch over the future. As the first ray of sunlight shone on the earth and dawn came, the people on the street gradually became lively. The hawkers' voices mixed with the various voices on the street, forming a lively and bustling scene. Ordinary people, they didn't know what happened last night and the danger. This was the advantage of being ordinary. Nothing would involve them. Battles and experts had nothing to do with them. In the inn, Feng Xiao, who had been unconscious for an entire night, slowly woke up. He slowly opened his eyes and looked at the top of the bed. He lay there motionlessly, as if he had had a very, very long dream. Chapter 1670. You're awake. Shengwan Wanrong, who had been keeping watch at the bedside, saw that he had woken up. She let out a sigh of relief and revealed a gentle smile. Feng Xiao looked at her, composed himself, and asked, "How did I come back?" "Last night when Xiao Jiu and the others came back, you still hadn't come back, so we sent Du Fan and the others out to look for you. It was almost dawn when they found you in the alley. At that time, when we saw you unconscious and being carried back, our hearts were in turmoil and we were very worried. Fortunately, there were no serious injuries." As Shengwan Wanrong spoke, she helped him pull up the quilt. "You don't know how worried I was last night. Not only were you injured and unconscious, even Xiao Jiu and Shi Lin were injured all over." Hearing this, Feng Xiao's heart shook, instinctively and anxiously asked, "They were injured? Were their injuries serious?" "Ah." Xiao Jiu and Shi Lin said they were fine, that it was just a flesh wound, but I saw that the injuries were not light. Shi Lin's shoulder was stabbed by a sword, and there were many big and small wounds on his body. Some of them were so deep that you could see the bone. And Xiao Jiu's hands and calves were cut. Last night when he came back, he was limping. I was worried that you might have encountered danger outside." As Shengwan Wanrong spoke, she sighed softly. This child really cares about us. Even if she knows it's dangerous, she still leaves Hu Feng, who can protect her, by our side. When she heard that you haven't returned, she sent everyone out to look for you. Feng Xiao listened in silence, his heart was also very uncomfortable. At this time, there was a knock on the door from outside. "Mother, is father awake?" Feng Jiu's voice came from outside. Shengwan Wanrong in the room revealed a gentle smile, and said to Feng Xiao, "You see, your daughter has come to see you. She must be worried about you." As she spoke, she got up and went to open the door. Feng Xiao, who was lying on the bed, had a complicated look in his eyes. His heart seemed to be struggling. At this moment, it seemed like he did not know how to face his daughter. "Father, you're awake." Feng Jiu limped in. Although the wound on her calf had been treated, it had not healed. After all, although the green lotus in her body could heal her injuries quickly, it would attract attention. She could only use medicine to bandage it and let it slowly heal. Feng Xiao, who was lying on the bed, looked at his daughter, limping, supported by his wife, and Ling Shuang followed behind her, who was carrying medicine. Looking at her face's beautiful face, he could not help but ask, "Are you hurt badly? Are you hurt?" After he finished asking the question, he says, "Been together for so many years, fun's some habit. I'm fine, I'll be fine after a few days." She walked forward with a smile and sat down on the bed. Together with her mother, she helped her father up from the bed. He leaned against the headboard, and then took the bowl of medicine from Ling Shuang's hands. "This is the calming soup I asked Ling Shuang to make." Father's mind was greatly affected, so his qi and blood went against the flow and fainted. "Drink this medicine and you'll be fine." She scooped up a spoonful and blew on it, then brought it to his mouth and said with a smile, "Come, it's not bitter." Feng Xiao looked at her, quietly looking at her. It seemed like he was looking at her, but it also seemed like he was looking at another person through her. His mind was replaying scenes from the past. Chapter 1671. She followed behind him to practice martial arts. She was small, but she was never afraid of hardships. When she was bullied and called a motherless child, she ran back and asked him where her mother was. She gradually grew up and became a young lady. She secretly told him that she liked Murong Yi and that she wanted to marry him in the future and be his bride. Then, those scenes appeared in his mind as if they had happened yesterday. They were so clear, so deep, and so touched his heart. His daughter, his Qinggu, was killed by Su Ruian's trick of timing, right? The daughter who returned was strong and independent, confident and flamboyant. Sometimes she was cold and proud, sometimes she was mischievous, sometimes she was cute and charming, and sometimes she was wise and steady. These were all things that the Qinggu of the past did not have. It was not that they did not notice the change in her after she returned. It was just that they did not suspect her, because she was his daughter. It was not only because of her appearance. Even the feeling was similar. The blood ties between family members caused them to never doubt it, and they would never doubt it. But suddenly, one day, someone told him that his daughter had died, and the current daughter was no longer his daughter. Who could understand this kind of feeling? However, Xiao Jiu was not Su Ruoyun. Su Ruoyun disguised herself as his daughter in order to gain benefits from the Feng family, in order to obtain everything from them, in order to use them. Su Ruoyun had never treated them as her real family. But Xiao Jiu was not. Wasn't he very clear about this? In these few years, he saw clearly how she treated his family members. He also felt it very clearly. She treated them as her biological parents and her biological grandfather. She treated them as her family. She protected them. When the Feng family was in danger, it was she who stepped forward to protect the Feng family. It was she who supported everything with her own strength. It was she who blocked the danger for them. It was she who established the Phoenix dynasty for them. Even now, he and his wife could be reunited because of her. It was because she traveled thousands of miles from the Phoenix dynasty to the 8 great empires alone. It was she who braved danger and saved Wanrong from the 3 Yangtze. What right did he have to blame her? What right did he have to say that she was not his daughter? What right did he have to deny everything she had done for her family in the past? Could it be that just because of a few words from that black-clothed man, he could overturn everything and refuse to acknowledge this daughter? No. Even if her soul was no longer his daughter, she was still the second daughter given to the Feng family by the heavens. The heavens must have known that his daughter was gone, so they sent Xiaozhou to their side. They let her replace Qinggu and fulfill her filial piety. They let her replace their daughter and become their daughter. Fengjiu and Shengwan Wanrong looked at each other, somewhat worried. Because Feng Xiao sat there in a daze, watching Fengjiu silently shed tears. That kind of sadness made their hearts heavy. Father. What's wrong with you? Are you feeling unwell? Fengjiu asked softly. Her eyes and voice could not hide her worry. Husband. What happened to you? Chapter 1672. Feng Xiao slowly regained his senses. Through his tears, he looked at his daughter in front of him and suddenly reached out to hug her. Choking with sobs, he said, Xiaozhou, I'm sorry. It's Daddy's fault. I'm sorry, Chinga, I'm sorry. Daughter, I'm sorry. He muttered and repeated the words over and over again. He was apologizing to Fengjiu because he shouldn't have wavered in that moment. He shouldn't have doubted her. She did so much for them and gave so much of her heart, yet he actually doubted her for a moment and even felt his heart waver. He apologized to her, and also apologized to his daughter, Song Chinga. Only now did he know that his daughter was long gone. He let her leave alone, and as a father, he didn't protect her well. That's why she died at such a young age. As a father, he didn't fulfill his responsibility and didn't protect her well. It was all his fault, all his fault. Fengjiu was slightly startled. He was a little confused and worried. What happened to Daddy? He said that men bleed but don't cry. A man like him would never cry so easily. Why was he crying so sadly and blaming himself? What the hell happened? Daddy, did something happen? Tell me, I'll think of a way. She said softly as she gently patted his back. Beside him, Shangwan Wanrong was also startled. Seeing Feng Xiao crying so sadly and blaming himself, her eyes couldn't help but turn red. Her heart was anxious. Did something happen? Otherwise, why would he be like this? After a long while, Feng Xiao finally calmed down. His heart gradually calmed down. He wiped away his tears and shook his head. I lost my composure. It's fine, you don't need to worry. He decided that he wouldn't tell anyone about this. That's it. It was fine as long as he was sad about Chinga's passing. Wanrong shouldn't let her know. Seeing that he didn't say anything, Fengjiu didn't pursue the matter. He only said, Daddy, the medicine is getting cold. Drink it first. Okay. He adjusted his mind and buried the matter deep in his heart. He looked deeply at her, took the bowl of medicine from her hand, and drank the calming soup in one gulp. Fengjiu sensed that her daddy's gaze was a little strange. It seemed to be complicated, but also seemed to be a little emotional. In the end, he seemed to be relieved, which made her feel a little strange. What exactly happened to her father last night? Why was he so strange after waking up? Daddy, why are you looking at me like that? Do you have something to say to me? She couldn't help but ask. Feng Xiao looked at her, nodded, and handed the bowl to Shangwan Wanrong. Then, he said to Fengjiu, Xiaojiu, you must always remember that you are Daddy's daughter. You are a member of the Feng family. No matter what happens, you are a member of the Feng family. You are Daddy's good daughter. Daddy hopes that you can be happy. This is not only Daddy and your mother's wish, but also your grandfather's wish. Hearing this, Fengjiu's heart warmed. Although she didn't know why he suddenly told her this, she still smiled happily and nodded, I know, Daddy. She always knew that her family treated her very well. She always knew, so when she knew that her grandfather and the others were buried in the sea of fire, her heart was so sad. Chapter 1673. Brother, you're here. Feng Jiu looked back and saw him walking in. She said, your injury hasn't healed yet. Why did you get out of bed? Didn't I tell you to rest well today? Guan Shilin waved his hand. I can't stay in bed. Besides, it's just a small injury. It's not a big deal. He came to the bedside and looked at Feng Xiao, who was leaning against the headboard. Seeing that his eyes were red, he couldn't help but feel a little strange. Godfather, are you feeling better today? I'm better now. Don't worry. Feng Xiao nodded. That's good. You don't know how worried everyone was when you didn't wake up. Shangwan Wanrong smiled faintly. It's good that you're fine now. It was a false alarm. She paused and asked again, now that you're all injured, do you plan to rest here or on the spaceship? Let's rest on the spaceship. Fengjiu said. He looked at her parents and said, Dad is fine now that he's awake. We still have to hurry back and find little Feng Yi. I'm worried that the longer we delay, the more dangerous it will be for him. Then, let's get ready and set off. Shangwan Wanrong looked at Feng Xiao and asked, can we set off in the afternoon? She was worried about his health. She didn't know if the journey would be too much for him. Yes, I'm fine. I'll be fine after resting on the spaceship for a day or two. The most important thing now is to go back and find Feng Yi, he said in a low voice. Father and the others have been killed. As his older brother, I must find Feng Yi. Guan Shilin nodded. Then I'll go tell Du Fan and the others to get ready. With that, he nodded at Fingzhou and turned to leave. Dad, you rest first. I'll go out and take a look. I'll come back when we're about to set off, Fingzhou said. He called Ling Shuang, who was guarding outside, and asked her to help him back. Your leg is injured, so don't walk around. If there's anything, just tell them to do it. Feng Xiao couldn't help but say. Looking at her limping, he was worried that her injury would affect her walking in the future. I'm fine. She turned around and smiled. With the help of Ling Shuang, they walked out together. This child is just like that. She can't stay idle. Just let her be. She is a doctor and knows her own situation, Shengguan Wanrong said with a smile. She came to the bedside and sat down. She looked at Feng Xiao and said, Are you really okay? It's fine, Feng Xiao said. Hearing this, Shengguan Wanrong looked at him and said, But why do I feel like something's wrong with you? Was it because he couldn't say it out loud? If you can't say it, then I won't ask. Feng Xiao looked at her and sighed softly. It's really nothing. I just feel like I've encountered too many things recently. Too many sudden changes have made it hard for me to accept them all at once. When I think of Father and the others dying in the fire, when I think of the Phoenix Guards dying in the palace, when I think of Feng Yi and Yang Yang wandering outside and not knowing where they are, my heart really. Chapter 1674. This matter seemed to have been forgotten. Even though Feng Xiao knew about it, he had no intention of speaking it out. He buried this secret in his heart. After sorting out his emotions, he left with them on the spaceship. The dead were gone, and the living were still alive. He should look forward. They still had a long way to go in the future, on the other side of the Xianyuan Empire. When Xianyuan Mose received his father's letter and hurried back, his heart was filled with uneasiness. His mood was heavy all the way. If it wasn't for the urgency of the matter, if it wasn't for the fact that it happened so suddenly, he wouldn't have rushed back to the palace when Fingzhou's family was in trouble. Master, we're almost at the Imperial City. Should we enter the palace directly or return to the mansion first? Hui Lang asked Xianyuan Mose beside him. Enter the palace. A low voice came out of his mouth. Standing on the spaceship, he looked into the distance with his hands behind his back. The spaceship flew directly through the gate of the Imperial City and stopped at the entrance of the palace. In the spaceship, 16 guards in black jumped down and stood in 2 rows. Then, Xianyuan Mose walked out and alighted from the spaceship, followed by Hui Lang Ning. Under the escort of everyone, they went all the way to the inner hall. When the guards in the palace saw him, they all bowed their heads respectfully. Seeing that he had returned, everyone was relieved. Your subordinate greets you, master. A secret guard in black came out and knelt on one knee. Xianyuan Mose stopped and looked at the secret guard in front of him. He said in a low voice, Tell me the whole story. After saying that, he continued to walk forward. The shadow guard walked up to him and nodded at Grey Wolf and Shadow. He then said in a low voice, Recently, there has been a group of people trying to rope in other forces. These people have infiltrated our bases to destroy and ambush us. Many people have died, and a few of our bases have been destroyed as well. In addition, the forces in the palace are somewhat scattered. Many people are playing tricks under the table. At the same time, a few other empires are putting pressure on our Xianyuan dynasty. About half a month ago, our monarch was ambushed by a strong enemy when he went hunting. His dantian was destroyed and his cultivation was crippled. However, we dare not spread the news. I am worried that if the news were to spread, the Xianyuan Empire would be shaken. After hearing the secret guard's words, not only did Xianyuan Mo's face turn as cold as ice, but even Hui Lang and Ning Yi's faces turned extremely grave. Something so big had actually happened. When her master received the letter, it only said that something big had happened in the palace and that she should return quickly, but she did not expect the situation to be so serious. Several empires exerted pressure, their subordinate forces were destroyed, and the forces in the palace were scattered. Who exactly was it? How could he have the ability to throw the Xianyuan Empire into chaos in such a short period of time? How is he now? He asked in a low voice. The secret guard was only startled for a moment. He knew that her master was referring to the monarch. Therefore, he immediately said, "Your subordinate ordered someone to disguise as the monarch." At the same time, the monarch was transferred to a safe place to recuperate. However, all doctors know that the monarch can only live in the state of a mortal for the rest of his life. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mo's faintly pursed his lips and tightly clenched his fists under his sleeves. His entire body emitted a cold and threatening aura, and his cold voice was like a 1,000-year-old ice pillar that came out of his mouth. Investigate. At all costs, I want to know the person behind this. Chapter 1675. When Xianyuan Mo arrived at the inner palace, he saw his father recuperating in the palace. It was as if he had aged 10 years in a single night. His spiritual power was completely gone. At this moment, he was lying on the bed like an ordinary old man. His hair was white, and his brows were slightly furrowed. It seemed that he was not sleeping well. If he had not seen it with his own eyes, he would not have believed that the usually hot-tempered, arrogant, and unyielding person would become like this. Even if he did not want to call him father, he was indeed his father. He originally thought that he could be very cold to him, but unexpectedly, when he saw him lying here, his heart was filled with anger. Hui Lang moved a chair to the side of the bed for his master to sit. Then, he retreated with Ning Yi to guard outside the palace. When they were outside, Hui Lang, who had been silent for a long time, could not help but speak. Who do you think it is? Who has such great ability? The monarch is so strong, but he also... Ning Yi's eyes were deep. After a moment of silence, he said, "To be able to make the other empires put pressure on us, I'm afraid it is not ordinary. If we do not handle it well, our Xianyuan Empire will be like the Xianyuan dynasty, broken into pieces. Why does it feel like they are targeting us and the ghost doctor? Among the opponents and enemies in the past, there has never been such a strong enemy." Hui Lang did not understand. The Yen Palace was so powerful, and they had hidden their bases so carefully. How could they have been discovered by those people? To be able to know their base so clearly, it could only mean that there was a mole among them. Otherwise, it would be impossible to do this. In the palace, Xianyuan Mo watched the person on the bed slowly wake up. The moment he opened his eyes, their eyes met. Both of them were silent. In the end, it was the monarch on the bed who spoke. "You're back. Did the journey go smoothly?" Hearing the weak voice, Xianyuan Mo's eyes moved slightly. He did not answer the question. Instead, he asked, "Do you know who attacked you?" It was not the people of the 8 great empires. The monarch narrowed his eyes as he spoke. It was as though the scene from that day was still fresh in his mind. Those people's skills are very unique. Furthermore, their cultivation is profound and their martial skills are extraordinary. I'm guessing that they are from the upper reaches of the river. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mo frowned. We have never had any dealings with those people. Why would they suddenly attack us? The other party wants to destroy our Xianyuan empire. What else could they be up to other than seeking revenge? Those people over there probably aren't interested in the empire here. Since they aren't interested, the only thing left is to seek revenge. The monarch's voice was extremely slow as he spoke each word slowly. His cultivation was crippled, his spiritual energy scattered, and his inner core shattered. If it wasn't for his nascent soul, he wouldn't have been able to survive. He had been in power for so many years, the ruler of a country, the ruler of a country. He had never imagined that such a day would come. To an immortal cultivator, having his cultivation destroyed and becoming immortal was like being knocked down from the high heavens. If not for the fact that he had experienced so many things and had an extraordinary mind, he would have committed suicide because he couldn't accept it. Chapter 1676. Hearing his words, Xianyuan Mose fell silent. After a long while, he stood up and said, "Take good care of your body. Leave the rest to me." With that, he turned and left without saying anything else. "Wait a minute." The monarch stopped him. Xianyuan Mose stopped and turned back to look at him. "Is there anything else? Didn't you bring back your wife?" The monarch asked. "Something happened in her family, so she rushed back to deal with it." With that, he left without saying anything else. Hui Lang and Ning, who were guarding outside, saw him come out and quickly followed him to one of the palaces in the palace. This was the palace where their master usually did his work. Now that they saw their master coming here, they knew that their master did not intend to return home. Just as Xianyuan Mose sat down in the palace and picked up the latest information to read, a secret guard hurried in to report. "Master, King Cheng entered the palace and wanted to see the monarch. Now he is making a scene in front of the main hall and has injured a few palace guards." Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose frowned and said in a low voice, "Throw them out." But King Cheng brought a few commanders who were in charge of the palace and said that they knew that the monarch was harmed and his cultivation was destroyed. They wanted to enter the palace to protect the monarch and kill anyone who disobeyed. The secret guard hesitated and said, "Now that they are in a deadlock, I saw that they wanted to break into the East Palace and quickly came to report. Master, please tell me what to do." After all, King Cheng was a member of the Xianyuan royal family. If he really wanted to kill him, he was afraid. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose put down the information in his hands with a sullen face, stood up, and strode out. Hui Lang and Ying Yi saw this and immediately followed. In front of the main hall, a slightly plump middle-aged man in a purple robe stood with his hands behind his back. He was glaring angrily at the guards in front of him. Behind him, there were more than a dozen guards in Imperial Guard uniforms and one or two middle-aged men in official robes. "How dare you? You even dare to block my path? You must have eaten a bear's heart and leopard's guts. Step aside. If you don't get out of the way, be careful that I don't order you to be killed." The purple-robed King Cheng shouted sternly. With a flick of his sleeve, a stream of air gushed out and blew away the guards in front of him. Due to his status, the guards were more or less tolerant, but now that they were injured by the opponent's airflow, they could only forcefully suppress it, but they didn't dare to step back even a little bit to let them in. It was only when they heard a low and cold voice that the guards were overjoyed and immediately raised their heads to look. "Oh! How come I don't know that anyone can kill anyone in the palace if they want to?" Everyone shuddered when they heard the voice. Even the purple-robed King Cheng couldn't help but reveal a trace of fear in his eyes. When he turned around and saw the black-robed figure walking towards him, a smile involuntarily appeared on his originally ferocious face. Mose is back." He went up to him with the attitude of an elder. "Mose, It's good that you're back, it's good that you're back. You don't know what happened in the palace when you left. I was worried at first, but now that I see you back, I can finally rest assured. Your Highness the Crown Prince. When the guards saw him, they hurriedly knelt on one knee and bowed respectfully and reverently. Chapter 1677. Finally, his gaze landed on the imperial guards with swords. His voice was cold and sinister, who allowed the imperial guards to bring swords into the palace. When the imperial guards heard this, their hearts trembled and they immediately knelt down. Your Highness, please forgive us. When King Ching saw this, he quickly said, Mose, it's like this, Before he could finish, he was interrupted by Xianyuan Mose's voice. Hui Lang, Ying Yi, chop off their right arms. Yes. After receiving the order, Hui Lang and Ying Yi immediately responded. Before the imperial guards could react, they instantly took action. A cold light flashed past in an instant. Sharp screams pierced through the imperial guards' eardrums and reverberated in the sky above the imperial palace, causing everyone's heart to tremble. His Highness had returned and the imperial palace had been reorganized. Who would dare to be impudent? King Ching saw the dozens of arms fly out and fall in front of him one by one. The bloody scene made his legs go weak and his body involuntarily tremble. He was afraid of Xianyuan Mose. His methods were so ruthless. He was a cold-blooded and heartless person, a demon who killed without batting an eyelid. If he wanted to kill someone, all he had to do was to open his mouth. He did not even care who the other party was. He was even sure that if he had crossed his bottom line, it would not be these imperial guards who would have their hands chopped off. It would be him, King Ching. When he thought of this, his heart could not help but turn cold and his face became paler. He really should not have entered the imperial palace today. He thought that Xianyuan Mose had not returned yet. Who knew that he was already in the imperial palace? Xianyuan Mose ignored the imperial guards who were lying on the ground and wailing. He also ignored the dozens of broken arms piled in front of King Ching. He walked forward step by step and stopped in front of King Ching. What did you say earlier? Why did you come in? King Ching swallowed his saliva and raised his sleeve to wipe the cold sweat on his forehead. He said in a trembling voice, No, nothing. I just wanted to come in and see you, your father. But since you're back, then I can go back in peace. That's good. Xianyuan Mose said with his hands behind his back. His deep and sharp eyes stared at King Ching in front of him and said in a cold voice, I don't want to see anyone trying to fish in troubled waters and stir up trouble. If anyone dares to scheme in front of me, their fate will be worse than death. Yes, no Mose, you won't let those schemers off the hook. If I find them, I will not let them off. King Ching hurriedly replied and pretended. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose glanced at them and said, Let's go back. All right, then I'll head back first. Please send my regards to your imperial father. I'll definitely visit him another day when I have time. Palace. The broken arms on the ground were quickly taken care of by the imperial guards. Not even the slightest trace of blood was left. Xianyuan Mose turned around and returned to the imperial palace after everything had calmed down. The news of Xianyuan Mose's return to the imperial palace quickly spread. Along with the news of him becoming the regent in the imperial palace, those who were ready to cause trouble could not help but give up. Some did not dare to act rashly. Chapter 1678. On the other side of the Phoenix dynasty, Fengzhou and the others finally returned to the imperial city. The spaceship flew straight in and stopped at the gate of the imperial city. When the news of their return spread, the leaders of the various forces and family clans in the imperial city all sent people to keep an eye on them. In fact, the Fongs treated them really well. However, they didn't know what kind of expert they had offended this time. That was why they had brought such a huge disaster upon themselves. Even though they wanted to help, they didn't dare to. Now that they heard that Feng Zhou and Feng Xiao had returned, everyone's attention fell on the imperial city. Old Man Gung was the first to rush to the imperial city after hearing the news. The Phoenix Guards and the people of Yandian also rushed to the gate to welcome them. When the 8 captains of the Phoenix Guards saw their master, Feng Zhou, return, their eyes couldn't help but redden. "Greetings, master." After the 8 of them came forward to salute, they also saluted Feng Xiao, family head. "Ghost Doctor." Ren Xiang stepped forward and saluted, "I'm here on master's orders to help you. If there's anything you need, you can tell me. I'll arrange it." Feng Zhou's gaze swept past the 8 Phoenix Guards. He saw that Luo Yu, Fan Lin, Qi Kang, and the others were all fine. However, they couldn't hide the pain in their eyes. On the other hand, Ren Xiang was the head of the Cool Breeze gang. He was the person that Xianyuan Mose had left behind to take charge of Yan Dian's forces. This time, it was all thanks to him that they were able to assassinate the people who were hiding here. "Where were my grandfather and the others burned?" she asked, her gaze falling on Luo Yu. Luo Yu lowered his head slightly and said, "I'll take you there, master." Thus, they all led the way in front and brought Feng Zhou and the others to the place where Feng Sanyuan and Su Shi were burned that night. The group walked quietly into the imperial city. Looking at the imperial city that had obviously been repaired and the Phoenix Guards that were missing half, they didn't feel good. Especially Feng Xiao. Since stepping into the imperial city, he didn't speak again. He just walked step by step and looked. Every step was unusually heavy. "Master, this is the palace." Luo Yu stopped in his tracks, looked at her and Feng Xiao, and said, "That night, other than the 2 children, little Feng Yi and Zhao Yang, no one else survived. When we came in through the secret passage, we saw the retired emperor, who was riddled with wounds, from afar. He was injured from the back by 2 strong men of the fairy realm, and he was sent flying into the raging flames. At this point, he stopped and lowered his head. We wanted to rush out to save them, but in the end, we didn't. We deserved to die." The 8 of them knelt down together. Feng Zhou took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. Looking at the burned palace, he felt his heart clench in pain. The entire palace had been burned to such a state. Grandpa and the others had most likely died without even leaving behind a corpse. The other places had been slightly renovated, but this place was still in ruins. She walked forward, and when she saw the words on a signboard that had been burned, she fell into a momentary daze. "Yihua. Is this Yihua Palace?" The palace that Murong Yishuan had lived in back then. This Yihua Palace was rather remote and far from the main palace. She didn't expect that Grandpa and the others would be chased here and buried in this Yihua Palace. A big fire burned everything to ashes. "Father. Your son is back." Chapter 1679. Shengwan Wanrong, who was standing at the side, also knelt down quietly. After kowtowing 3 times, she stood beside Feng Xiao. Seeing this, Feng Zhou also knelt down beside her father and kowtowed 3 times towards the ruins. "Grandfather, grandmother, don't worry. We'll definitely find little Feng Yi." Guan Shilin, who was standing at the side, also knelt down with Feng Zhou and kowtowed 3 times respectfully. Compared to his biological grandfather, this grandfather, who was not related by blood, treated him better and cared more about him. After kowtowing, they headed towards the main hall. When they arrived at the main hall, Ren Xiang asked, "We haven't found the person behind this." Aren't you worried that you'll attract the attention of those people by taking a flying ship back here? Those people's abilities are all above the fairy realm. They really can't be underestimated. If they set their sights on you, I'm afraid the consequences will be unimaginable. Even though Feng Jiu's cultivation level was quite high, and she had the protection of an ancient divine beast, if she was surrounded and attacked by so many fairy realm experts, she would not be able to protect herself, let alone the others. He originally thought that they would return quietly, but he did not expect that the flying ship would fly past the imperial city and land at the entrance of the imperial palace. Once they appeared, the whole city knew about it. Naturally, if there were still people watching in the dark, they would definitely notice. Feng Jiu was silent for a moment, then she said, "We already met those people on the way back. Moreover, I also heard from my father that the people from that force know that you've ambushed and killed their people. It can be said that our every move here is under the eyes of those people. There's nowhere to hide." Hearing this, Ren Xiang, Luo Yu, and the others were shocked. They know. Then you. Feng Xiao took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. After calming himself down, he said in a low voice, "I don't know what they're planning. They only intercepted us on the way back, but they didn't kill us. We've been discussing and researching on the way back, but we didn't find anything." "Oh right, do you have any clues? Do you know who these people are?" "These people aren't from the 8 great empires." Ren Xiang glanced at them and said, "You may not know this, but even the 8 great empires are not the entire continent. Compared to other places, the region where the 8 great empires are located can only be considered as the lower reaches. The upper reaches occupy no territory, and there are as many nascent soul experts there as there are feathers. I have analyzed that only the upper reaches have such strength. Only the upper reaches would dare to make an enemy of Yen Hou." As for the upper reaches, Feng Xiao had only vaguely heard of it, but he had never been there, let alone come into contact with it. It was just that he did not expect this matter to be related to the forces there. If that was the case, he was afraid that this would be troublesome. His mood was a bit heavy, especially when he thought about that person telling him about Xiao Zhou. They actually knew about such a secret. This kind of ability was really frightening. If they really wanted to exterminate the Feng family, he was afraid. For now, they probably won't attack us. Feng Jiu stood up and said, "Since we are still safe for now, let's find little Feng Yi first." Chapter 1680. Are there any other secret passages in the palace other than the one Master took us through? Luo Yu asked. He looked at the Master in front of him and said, "We only found 2 secret passages in the palace. We don't know about the others." What they knew was limited, but they searched everywhere. However, they didn't find any clues. Hearing this, Feng Zhou's eyes flashed slightly. "There is another secret passage. I think they should have gone through it." After saying this, she stepped out. The people behind her quickly followed her out. Under Feng Zhou's lead, they came to the secret passage where Yi Sushi sent little Feng Yi and Zhao Yang away. They found that the secret passage's mechanism was destroyed. The stone door couldn't be opened and was completely sealed. They were more and more certain that they left from here. Let people open this place and search along this secret passage. In addition, send a group of people to Tianlin City to search. If I'm not wrong, they should be there. Okay, we'll look for them right away. Luo Yu and the others responded and quickly split up. On the other side, in a human market adjacent to the imperial city, there were many slaves locked in large iron cages. There were big and small slaves, old and young, male and female. They were all categorized into 3 classes and locked in iron cages to be sold. Most of these slaves, except for some who were sold by their masters, were captured and brought here by others. Among them, children were the most important. Xiao Yang and little Fengye were also locked up in an iron cage inside the building. The two of them sat against the cage. Their faces were dirty, and the clothes on their bodies were no longer recognizable. They escaped the capture of the tall and thin man last time, but they didn't escape the fate of being targeted by human traffickers. Several human traffickers were waiting for them in the dark. They couldn't escape and finally fell into the hands of those people and were locked here. Yang, what should we do? It's okay. Don't worry, I have a way. Xiao Yang whispered a few words in his ear. At the same time, he took out 2 small pills from his waist and swallowed one for each of them. After about half an hour, the two of them were covered with red spots. They cried out, "Aw! So uncomfortable, so uncomfortable." The two of them rolled on the ground and cried. What's going on? The people outside came in to take a look. They saw 5 or 6 children squatting on one side of the cage, while 2 people on the other side were rolling on the ground. Their skin was covered with red spots. Why do these 2 brats have red dots on their bodies? A man with a whip in his hand asked curiously. Another person said, "Look at that red, why does it look like smallpox? Don't tell me these 2 brats are suffering from smallpox." As he spoke, he couldn't help but take a few steps back. When the man heard what he said, he was shocked and hurriedly retreated a little. Smallpox. If those people are infected, how are we going to explain it to the higher-ups? Lock those 2 brats in the woodshed at the back first, then find a doctor to check if it's smallpox. So, the 2 of them discussed and called 2 other men who were doing odd jobs. They took Yang and little Fengye out of the iron cage and locked them in the woodshed at the back. The 2 of them were thrown into the woodshed and cried a few times. After those people went away, Xiao Yang went forward and helped little Fengye up. Get up, let's find a way to leave here. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.